All right, yeah, don't click it yet. We don't want to like accidentally give away the good stuff. I don't know if there is any good stuff. All right, it's pretty hard having a presentation that's called like career advice without trying to convince you that you need to go sell something to your neighbors that will go then sell something to their neighbors. That seems like a get rich quick type theme. When I was growing up, I wanted to become a teacher because that seemed like that was the easy money. As far as I go to college, I get a degree, and then I automatically have a job after I graduate. And I graduated at the time of the Great Recession, so that was like quite real that everyone wanted to find a job, and so many millennials out there actually struggled with that. But you're in a very similar position to that of a teacher or a doctor, or I guess someone who has AI somewhere in their degree, in that there is an exceptional demand for your talent, for your skills. And that's a really cool spot to be in, right? People are saying, we need more cybersecurity folks. And you have large organizations making commitments to say, we're going to get 1 billion more people in cyber, not a billion, but 1 million more people in cyber over the next 5 years. And that's all cool. Obviously, you care about what that means for you, right? You are all here because of multiple reasons, but ultimately it is the, did I break something? Ultimately, it is the selfishness that you want to go out to the world, make a lot of money, do really cool stuff, and hopefully leave the world a little bit better than you found it, to whatever extent you can, right? Okay. So again, Joe Cicero, LinkedIn stalk me. Oh, that's not the right one to drive. This one is. There we go. So if you think about that, that's a pretty cool scenario to be in, that people want to hire you. But who hires you matters a lot, because who here would rather make 300K than 100K, right? It's pretty easy math. Everybody wants cybersecurity, whether you're the neighborhood hardware store or you are Walmart. So you need to understand what that path actually looks like and why you're actually doing it in the first place, right? Other ways to get rich quick. So like that whole selling to your neighbor thing I was talking about. So you need to know your why. You need to know how you actually want to work and how you like to work, right? Do you want to be with people? Do you not want to be with people? Do you want to be in a very large organization of 100,000 people, or do you want to be in a small organization of 100 people, or like even smaller, like a law firm where there's like 50 people? Law firms are really exciting. If you're into that kind of stuff, the cybersecurity threats in law firms is pretty interesting because they're moving a lot of transnational money around. They have escrow accounts. Just because they don't have a lot of people doesn't mean it's not very exciting. Same is true for like a Walmart. Or do you even want to look at the manufacturing side of security products? So this is where I have a quick, I got to skip through these two things. This was funny though, I presented this yesterday, this slide. Bill Gates said in 2002, Microsoft was going to solve security. It didn't happen because security is ever evolving. This slide I'm going to skip through too. The threats are emerging and there's lots of cool stuff in cyber. But to drill into the career part, which is what I want to spend a lot of time with today, I say that my background, and I'll just flip right through the meme, is that I'm a former history teacher. I did not go to school for cybersecurity. It really didn't exist. There was some computer science programs, but those were not as exciting as the work that you get to do back then. So I started off as a history teacher, went the Google route through a partner doing Chrome management. So if you've ever played around with the Chrome operating system or deployment, that was my gig. And then I moved over to Microsoft to work on the device management side. And after the pandemic, when everyone and their grandma had bought a new laptop, I decided that I needed a new challenge. And then I went to the Microsoft Defender Experts Incubation Team, which is pretty exciting work because it's not only the threats that you see, but it's how do you actually build a product or a service that people want and can use, and that it doesn't confuse or break things or make anything worse, which is often that fine balance of security and how do you not break things while also making things safer. And then I moved over to security risk advisors. I didn't like being remote after a while and wanted to be in an office, and security risk advisors has a local office. Many of you in the room actually get to spend time there. It's like a little RIT campus. It's pretty funny how the similarities, oftentimes I can't tell who the co-ops are and who the real SRA, not real, but who the full-time SRA employees are, just because of how that all works out. But you're already familiar with us, so we'll skip through that and talk about what's your goals. What do you want to do in this space? You can do anything. Cybersecurity, you can work for a cybersecurity company. You go work for CrowdStrike, Splunk, QRadar, Rapid7, Microsoft, Google, AWS. You can work for a tech company that does cybersecurity. And that might be your thing. Have any of you done any type of co-ops with any of those like larger security provider? Besides like a managed service provider, but like a manufacturer of security products, okay? That's a whole industry. Then we have the finance side of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity solutions are really expensive, and you just need to know they're really expensive. When you see people's logos advertising, that means that there's probably a good amount of money to be made in what's going on. But then we get into like these more traditional security roles that you might be looking at. Every single one of these roles, you can make wherever you start, we'll say 100K to $1 million, right? There's no reason why someone who's managing a service, there's no cap to that. There's no cap to if you're going to be this AI innovator. I guess at some point the AI starts innovating AI, and then like, you know, we run to the bunkers or whatever we do. Same thing is true for threat hunters. Same thing is true for your red team, your blue team, all of that stuff. There's no one practice inside of cybersecurity that is going to lead you to your ultimate job, your ultimate like income, right? And you're going to do all of them is the reality. You're going to check all of those boxes, and you are going to, at some point in your life, be blue team, red team. Then at some point, you'll be on the business development side of cybersecurity, right? If you think of your career over the next 30 years, you're going to work at a small shop, a big shop. You're going to have a finance position. You're going to have a business development position. You're going to have a sales position. And yes, you're going to get to do some of that cybersecurity practitioner work too. But you're going to probably bounce around in your career. Or you'll find what you really love and what you really hate, and you'll avoid what you really hate. Let's look at some job postings. So this is Blue Voyant. Are you folks familiar with Blue Voyant? They're similar to Security Risk Advisors. They're a cybersecurity consulting firm. Customers hire them to do cybersecurity on their behalf or along their side. The same, very similar to what we do at Security Risk Advisors, where companies struggle to get good talent, skills, as well as get the infrastructure rolled out, and they hire a partner to help them do it for them, or to do it with them, right? Augmentation or outsourcing type model. So if we look at like some of these job descriptions out there, why isn't this highlighted? Let me just see a second. Was this an effect? For some reason the highlights aren't showing. I started to highlight some of the skills and qualifications to look for. What's interesting when we look at these job postings is it actually naming specific things or not? I hired several people in the past, large groups, and it's often very complicated what you can put in a job posting and what the job posting looks like and what the job actually is. Okay, I should probably say that again. What the job looks like versus what the job actually is are two different things. Because there's legal, compliance. Sometimes the person's just rushed and they're like, I have the head count, I want to fill it, I have this ready to go. That's why if you ever go through Microsoft hiring rounds or Amazon hiring rounds, they'll often give you a second application once you kind of make it through the first couple things, because they'll be like, well, here's the actual job that we want you to apply for. It's not cool if you're trying to get referral bonuses for getting your friends hired, because then it changes what job they're actually hired for. But it kind of shows that the job changes. Very important as part of your screener conversations, or when you're meeting with folks at a career fair or in a hallway. Not only should you know what you're passionate about, what you care about, what your interesting things are when it comes to the cybersecurity field are, but you should be able to poke in and they're like, we're looking for blue advisory. And your response should be, well, what the heck does that look like at security risk advisors? What the heck does that look like at a Blue Voyant or a Red Canary? And don't say heck, you got to like sound really polished and professional and all of that stuff. But you should dig into what the job actually is and how they define these. Especially if it says anything about sales engineer. If it ever says anything sales in it, even if it says like engineering 5 times after that, it's really a sales role. Just to kind of give you that quick lesson. Anything that has sales in it is sales, no matter how else they describe it as different. But this one, this is an engineering role, and you can see that they are looking for a wide selection, hands-on experience, mastery with AWS, GCP, and Azure. That's freaking amazing. I want to hire that person too. Do you think they actually exist? Not at the price range that they're looking for, right? And you might see this and say, I am not qualified for this because I don't check all of those boxes because you're all very academically gifted. The reality is that this is a wish list. This is someone's Amazon wish list. This is their registry of what they would like to have. And it's to give you an idea of what the type of work is. So if you have some Azure certs, cool, you should apply. If you have a GCP cert, fine, you should apply. But you don't need to say, I match all of the boxes in order to proceed. Because if you matched all the boxes, then you're the unicorn, right? No one ever matches all the boxes, and no one is ever a perfect fit because the hope is that they bring something to the organization that's better than what was asked for. So don't let that ever like make you think, oh, I shouldn't apply for a job. Because there are other people that are applying for jobs all the time. For one of the jobs I posted at my former role, we had 2,000 applicants within 24 hours. Do you think all 2,000 qualified for everything on my bulleted list? No. Most were just randomly applying for things, all of this stuff, and it goes through screeners who check it and all this pre-stuff that tries to filter it all out. Here's another one. Here's a Microsoft job. This is a service delivery manager role. So this role actually, what it actually is people in this role meet with a small set of customers, like 10, that are consuming the Microsoft security service. And their job is to go over mean time to resolution, mean time to acknowledgement, everything regarding the customer's SIM environment that Microsoft is managing on their behalf. Go through the data, go through the open incidents, go through the tickets, give a couple charts and graphs about what is going on within their security ecosystem, and then see if there's any blockers that this service delivery manager can go help solve. Hey, Microsoft is huge. Microsoft security alone is like 4,000 people that work in the Microsoft security organization. And it's probably even higher now. So this person will help transact and connect those people. But if you read through this, you don't see anything about technical skills here. So you might be like, oh, well, this is a non-technical role. Well, it says engineering at the top. So I'll say when Microsoft says engineering in the title and it's not sales, in the profession, that actually means something. But Microsoft expects someone for this role to have all of the Azure certifications when it comes to security. So all of the SC 200, 300, 400, or at least a working knowledge of that so that they can have an intelligent conversation with the customer. But the expectation is at that 200 to 300 level, right? Not 400. You don't need to be a master at everything. You will be a master at something, some things, but you don't need to be a master at everything. You just need to help the customer navigate and understand what's going on in their environment. But very interesting that it doesn't list any certifications or anything like that. But reading through, you have to assume, what would Microsoft probably want me to have? So your resume, if it has those certifications listed, which it should, is going to be looked at more favorably than someone without, if that's what the hiring folks are looking for. Here's a security risk advisors one. What is this? CSOC analyst roles. What do we have? You have to be familiar with SIMs, and that's pretty fair because if you know how to use Sentinel, you probably have used other SIMs, and they all start to act very much alike and have a lot of similarities. Obviously, one or two things that makes some better than others. EDR tools, right? So CrowdStrike EDR, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And then, some names of some products. You have to have familiarity with those things, right? And you have that as part of your co-op. You have that as part of your experience. It doesn't mean that these are checklists that someone needs experience with all of these things in order to get in, or in order to have their resume actually like considered or reviewed, etc. Here's another one. Here we get a little bit more specific. This is a red teaming type role. So I think we had some, you need Windows and Linux experience. Talks about presentations. A lot of tech jobs, cybersecurity jobs that you see will actually focus on the communication skills, because the assumption is that everyone with a cybersecurity degree can do cybersecurity. The assumption is not that everyone with a cybersecurity degree can communicate effectively with stakeholders. Even when you get on a call or an interview screening, you have to make that clear that you know how to communicate. Otherwise, that's a big differentiator. Are you raising your hand?
Yeah. In your opinion, if that's true, is it worth emphasizing your communication skills on resume even more than a lot of the minor or early on technical aspects if you're gravitating towards how well can you communicate?
So in your resume, you have your bullet like, at this co-op, hopefully you can list their name, maybe you can't. At this one experience, I helped deploy MDE to 1,000 devices, and I communicated that to all 3 groups of decision makers on a weekly cadence. That sounds amazing, because it sounds like you not only know the tech, but you know how to talk to different groups of people and that you can manage a project, right? The assumption is if someone sees on your resume, cybersecurity, RIT, like, cool, they check that, they know the tech, but can they talk to people and can they actually get stuff done? That's where you can start to stand out in your resume. But you don't want to bury your skills, but you just want to add some into it, into those data bullets. Now, obviously, when you're looking for the job, there will be gaps of what you have and don't have, even when you're going into an interview. It's okay to share in an interview where you think you have opportunities to learn. I think that's way more authentic than saying, oh yeah, I know GCP, AWS, Azure. Because if you get hired for the job, you'll feel really cool and proud of yourself, and maybe you'll negotiate a lot of money. But if you're found out for not having those things, then you're out of the job. And that's even worse than like not getting hired. What's better is to go in and say, hey, my strengths are I'm really good with the Defender for Endpoint stack, Defender for Identity, and Sentinel. But when it comes to Microsoft Defender for Cloud, I'm not very familiar, and it's something that I'm going to actively work on to learn, and here's the things that I'm going to do in order to get there. I think that's a way better conversation, because the skill set that you graduate with will be expired after, 3 years, 4 years after college? Like, is any of that stuff going to be real anymore? Or will it all be changed to something completely different? So demonstrating your ability to set learning goals and to consider yourself a lifelong learner. I know that sounds silly because you're coming straight out of college, but that's something that folks are looking for too. Are they, people will talk about these terms and they'll throw like other terms at it and say like, are they hungry? Are they hungry? Are they motivated? Those are really hard to define. But if you can say, I can identify where my gaps are, I've identified where some of my gaps are in this role, and here's what I'm going to do to get there, and here's what I'm also going to do on top of that. I think it shows, again, just like how communication is important, your ability to solve problems that are unique to you or part of where your skill set is, I think is super important, and then that you can create action plans and work through that. I think I put a link in the beginning. I'll make sure everyone has this handout. We're not going to drill through all of these things, but I always like to share resources so that at the very least you have something that you can click away at. Obviously, you all were doing the news earlier. I'm excited about whatever OpenAI is doing now. Seeing Android, open source Android having issues is not surprising. That is used way more in the rest of the world than I think folks understand. It's more than just 1 or 2 types of devices. We're talking laptops that also run that platform. Very interesting. Obviously not part of this talk, but I thought that was interesting that pops up. So you have your product agnostic learning. That's kind of what you're doing right now. You have your product specific learning. For instance, do you have Microsoft security certs? Right there, they are worth it to get because when you submit an application, it goes through a bunch of AI screener tools. So if you can drop cert names, it scores your stuff higher. So and if you're really into Microsoft, you should have the Microsoft cert. If you're really into CrowdStrike, you should have the CrowdStrike cert. You should probably have certs in all of these. Maybe it's part of your coursework. Great. If it's not, or you haven't done that, then probably worth adding. I've interviewed a lot of people with CISPs. That seems to be pretty useful. The Security Plus, not so much. Not that it's not helpful, like it's any cert is good, and if you have certs, you should have them. The CISP thing is something that stands out. I don't think you folks are able to qualify for it, right? Because you don't have enough industry experience yet. I forget how that works. It might not be, right? You need the industry experience in order to then, like you can do the test, but then, oh yeah, some free lab stuff, and you guys are already way on down the road there. All right, who here has done B-sides? Have gone to like the Rochester B-sides is like right here, so no excuses why you can't get there, okay. Just one? Two?
Oh, somebody from here talked at the last one. That was at the RITN last year.
Yeah, it's every year. It's usually like when you think winter's over and there's one more snowfall. That is when that is in Rochester. You should all go. You can actually go for free if you like give them your resume, right? And maybe they have maybe you guys at RITSEC have an even better deal where you only have to give them your resume in order to get a free ticket in. But that is something you should participate in. That is something you should strive to present at. You do really cool stuff. You should be doing really cool stuff. This is one of the few times in your life where you'll have so much time to incubate new ideas, right? Between now and the age 30 is when you're going to be the most creative or something. Someone told me that once. So work towards that. There's the Buffalo one that's in June every year. That's on the Canisius campus. It's in downtown Buffalo. You have the regional black hat events. So Sector Security Toronto is, I think it's October, end of October. And I think maybe that one's like $50. It's not a bad rate, and that's right over the border. So as long as you have the appropriate documentation to get from here to there, that's one worth checking out. Then we get to the national conferences. So has anyone here done any national conferences? Shout them out if you've done them. Anyone do DEF CON yet? You did DEF CON. You do a DEF CON this year?
No, I think it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. SMooCon, okay.
Students will have
Very cool. Those are all fun things to do. They're all expensive, and you're college students, so it's hard getting the money for it. But there is what's called, Cyber Summer Camp, and that's in Las Vegas, where there's a B-sides plus a black hat plus a DEF CON plus the Diane Initiative. If you're not plugged into that, that is focused on females in cybersecurity, and they're all like the same week. And that's why it's called like Cybersecurity Summer Camp. But it's expensive because you have to pay for hotels and whatever. But something to have on your radar, there's the LinkedIn groups. And I will say this like I work for LinkedIn. I do not work for LinkedIn. You should have a really amazing LinkedIn. Any resume I get, I'm going to try to LinkedIn look up that person. And I've talked to folks before who have said, hey, I have my Discord account, or I have my GitHub, or I have my, this place where I keep my projects. Hiring managers are like me, and I know that I go to LinkedIn. So I'm going to say, I think it's a really good idea to have a frickin' amazing LinkedIn. Some cool things I've seen recently for co-ops is when you list your co-op experiences in your LinkedIn as job experience. That stands out because then you can, so long as you can say where the co-op was with, that's pretty darn cool because you can show exactly what you're learning, and it shows you to have some real experience, which is something that differentiates your degree here versus places that don't have that co-op. So that's been something that's stood out as I've interviewed other co-op folks, was when I click in there, I see exactly what they did at each thing. Now, obviously, if your work is confidential, what you can share, et cetera, is like limited, and I understand. But build your network of LinkedIn contacts. So you'll have a copy of this. You can add all of those people and they will accept because I already talked to them. Obviously, it's a little Microsoft heavy because of my background, but I put Red Canary and Blue Voyant on there too, which are, so, as well as security risk advisors, of course. Now, I have this little template. You don't have to use it. I've had it for a while. I just recently started throwing it on a GitHub page because I used to have a really cool thing in LinkedIn where I could store files, and then I left Microsoft, and they took half my features away. Even though I pay for premium now, it doesn't include like premium plus, I guess, is the next license that I need. So that's why, but you could pull it out there. What I think is worth noting on this type of template is coming up with clear goals of what type of job you would like. You're not looking for any job, right? You're looking for the job. And it doesn't mean to be the job for the rest of your life. You should probably work somewhere for 2 years and then move on, right? Maybe your first job you do a little bit longer, you do 3 or 4 years in order to prove that you can stick with it. But if you work at any place too long, it makes it a lot harder to change. And it makes it a lot harder for folks to hire you because they think, oh, well, there's so much that they can't be this. So you're going to change around a little bit. But having a clear plan of like some jobs I would like are, here's how I'm going to work on it. Here's the people that have that job today that I'm going to, become friends with in order to learn exactly how to get that job. And then be really freaking tactful with it. What's the knowledge I need? Who are the people I need? What's the company I want to be at? And what's the plan to actually get there? And the plan is not to find 3 jobs or 10 jobs. The plan is you're going to find probably hundreds of jobs. But you're going to start to group them together of like, here's 3 things I would like to do. And I think that's super important because if you chase money, you will find it, but you probably won't be as happy in the long run. So before we turn this over to Q&A, I do have a couple, am I going to read off of these? I don't want to. I will cover on these 3. I think they are very encompassing. The first one is you need to have an online presence where if someone searches for you, they find you and they find exactly what you want them to find about you. Right? So that means clean up your Facebook, clean up your Twitter, now X. You'd be surprised what will count as questionable tweets, even a retweet, even if it seems harmless, it will flag. So like, be really careful about that stuff and do some of your own reputation management online. Specialize in something. That doesn't mean that you can't do other things, but it means that if someone asks you what you're passionate about or what you're working on, you don't just say something really broad, like I'm working on securing the United States and everybody in it. And I do that through, bug bounty hunting. Great, now we've gotten specific. But try to have that one specific thing that's like, this is one thing if you want to talk to me for 5 minutes, this is what I would like to talk about. Right? Have that one thing, specialize. Soft skills matter. We already talked about it a lot. Right? If you have a cybersecurity degree, you don't have to necessarily show that you have cybersecurity skills. It's kind of assumed. Thank goodness. Folks transitioning into cybersecurity, they have to show that. But you don't have to show that you have a degree. But you have to show that you know how to talk to people and how you can drive changes. Do I not have I should have one on here, but I've thought better of it, and now I'm going to say it out loud. When you're applying for a job or you're going into a screener interview and you get something back from them, right? You're not going to do this for everybody, but when you get think of it as fishing with an F, not a P. So you throw out your fishing line. If the fish isn't biting, you're not reeling. But once you got a bite, someone responds to an email, someone calls you up, etc., go to town researching the crap out of that company, out of that person, out of that job. Who works there? Do you know anyone who works there? Do you have any relevant experience? You start working all of your back channels. And you know how to do this. right? It's actually part of our cyber security work on how we look for that open source intelligence out there. So use it. Figure out who's on your interview team and try to meet them before. Try to LinkedIn friend them. Even if they don't accept, because they might have like, oh, I don't accept people who I just interviewed with. The fact that you're poking on them makes them feel loved, right? Like, oh yes, they're looking, they're doing their research. Share insights that you have about the company too. Do all of that so it looks like, let's say you're talking to Disney World, right? Disney World, you want them to think that your life mission is to work at cybersecurity in Disney World, which might be freaking cool. You get a good discount, I know that, and Florida has nice weather, so it's probably not a bad gig. But you need Disney World to think that it's your number one job. You need everyone that you talk to think it's your number one job, right? I really want to work at Universal. I really want to work at Disney World. I really want to work at, I don't know, Legoland. But you have to make them think that, and you do that through research, through relationships, and building that network out. Because you're going to start this way, but 5 years from now, probably even less, 2 years from now, you're going to not have to apply for jobs really anymore. You're going to apply for jobs after you've already talked to the manager, because they're going to say, hey, Joe, you're a good fit for this. Do you want to come work over here? Right? That's why you build your network. You stop having to apply for jobs and you start networking, and then you apply for the job after you've already had a conversation. That's what you move towards, but obviously, as you start out, you have to do some of the step zero type stuff. All right, let's turn this over for questions. Ask weird ones, ask interesting ones. All right, Kip is going to start us off.
I might have missed this because I had to come in late, but how did you end up going from AP World to tech to Microsoft?
Because I get bored, which turns out is part of like ADHD, is the idea that you get like super fixated on something and then you like burn yourself out of that fixation, right? Like I thought I was going to be a bike packer for a little bit, and I did some bike packing, and then I was over it. I like checked the box and I moved on. So in 2008, when I was a teacher, the iPad came out. I think the iPad was super transformational, because before that, any computers in a classroom were like plugging into a cart and waiting for 40 minutes to log into Windows because it had to recreate that user profile. This is before you could like have light profiles, before Windows 10 and everything was running in a virtualized environment that you thought was really your desktop, before all that. So I thought the iPad was amazing. And I wrote a grant to get every kid an iPad. And Apple invited me to go do some speeches, and I got to publish some stuff on how I was using iPads in the classroom. And from there, iPads were really expensive. So then it came out the Chromebook, where it was like all of a sudden, remember USA Today 2010, they bought an ad that said the $200 laptop, right? Laptops to that point had never ever been $200. And that started me down my journey. And during the pandemic, I was very excited at Microsoft helping all of these students around the world. I think I deployed like tens of millions of laptops in using Microsoft Intune during the pandemic. And it was like, what's the next challenge? And it was cybersecurity. How do we actually get that to more people? How do we make it so it's not the isolated, oh yeah, that's what this group does over here. We don't quite know what they do. How do we make it mainstream? And what I like about cybersecurity is the same thing I love about education, is it's the ability to sit at a dining room table and be proud of the work that you do, right? That is the excitement of the job. Hey, if you're a teacher, you're educating the future, and therefore you are an everyday hero. If you're working in cybersecurity, you're fighting bad guys, and you're probably doing more for national security than a lot of other groups out there. And that makes you a hero too. So a little bit of is the hero complex, being able to feel good about the work doing it. And then cybersecurity is still a new field. I know folks that have like said they've been doing it for like 30 years, but I think it's constantly going to be in that new field state, because it's the bleeding edge. Every new thing that comes out has a new vulnerability. Next question. Yep.
Do you have any advice to offer on interviews?
Yep.
Just for the stream, can you repeat questions?
Oh, sorry.
You're okay. We forgot to tell you.
Oh, good. Second time, there will be no warning. We just, okay. What was your question?
Has there been
Yeah, the first one starts with the screener interview. People are gonna, yep. Oh, thank you. Gosh, I thought I was just getting a Nerf gun fired at me. All right. The question is advice for the interview. What advice would I offer? It starts with the phone screening. The phone screening is super important. That's your gatekeeper. Everybody's a gatekeeper until you're with the hiring manager. So I talked about it to one of the groups yesterday. On that screening call, they're going to ask you a lot of questions that makes it sound like they're just trying to fill out a form, right? They're going to be like, where do you live? Okay. You know, do you have any visa requirements? What's your preferred language? There's some of those things that they'll do that check the box. And then they'll say like, do you have any questions for me? Your question should be like, tell me a little bit more about the job, obviously, but they're going to be like, I don't know. I'm the recruiter, cybersecurity. Okay. And you might say, usually people will be like, oh, that's okay, cool. Yeah. When do I get to do the interview? What I recommend during that phone screening is stand up when you're on the call, be nice and clear, talk a little bit louder than you think you should, and talk a little bit slower than you think you should, because you're going to be nervous. So you're going to have a higher pitched voice, and you're going to talk way too fast. So, and whoever is doing your recruiting, English might not be their first language anyway. So it's always very helpful when you're speaking to a diverse group to just slow down the words a little bit. Nice, clear, get the answers out. But the big question here that you need to ask, and this feels like I'm giving away like my insider secret here, so congratulations on asking that. Ask them about the hiring manager. They might not know a lick about cybersecurity, but they know about Tom or Sarah or Pratik that they work with, because that's the person who's they're ultimately selling the person to, right? If I'm a recruiter, my job is to sell candidates to the hiring manager, right? So if I'm the recruiter, my success is the ability to make those matches. And therefore, the recruiter knows a lot about the hiring manager. And the hiring manager is not in the job description. But if you can find out who the hiring manager is, that's pretty freaking powerful. Okay, what do they do? What's their background? Where did they go to school? Gosh, if they went to RIT, what are you going to talk about during your conversation with them? Yeah, co-op, RIT stuff. Maybe there's like some like insider secret handshake stuff. I don't know, I didn't go here. But you're going to be able to do all of that research ahead of time. So always ask what they know about the hiring manager. Ask them what the interview process looks like, if there's multiple people you'll interview with, and get their names. Get their names, get all their information. They're going to ask you what you think your total comp should be. Don't answer that question. Be super freaking creative in not answering that question, because you don't know what you don't know really what they're offering. So you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot, and you don't want to also not get the job because you're like, I want $1 million, which might actually be a good answer because, like, obviously it's at least sarcastic. Yes, follow-up question.
Is it a good strategy to just be like super vague about it? So like, oh, $30,000 to $70,000 or something like that.
So here's the good news. In New York, and I think other states will follow this policy. Sorry, thank you. The question was about the total comp conversation in that screening interview. In that screening interview, if you say a low number that you think, yep, that's my range, it might be too low. And too low actually hurts both ways. It's not just, oh, you're going to make less money. It's that this isn't the caliber candidate I'm looking for in this role. And states like New York are making it so that if your company is large enough, they have to list what the compensation is. It's still not super accurate because it doesn't list like bonuses or stock options or other types of things, but at least starts to give you a clue. Levels.fyi is something that I've used in the past in order to see, where certain levels are. If you're interviewing at like an Amazon or a Microsoft or a Google, you can ask the hiring manager, this is another insider secret, you can ask them what level the role is. So if it's Amazon, we'll say level 3 for you folks. You can then research what that compensation actually is for a level 3 AWS security person. That's pretty easy to look up. Same is true for Microsoft. You'd be looking at like that 5960 level. I still wouldn't give them a number unless there's like a bare minimum and this is your dream job. But be very, very careful there. Now, tips for the interview itself that you asked. Dress in something that makes you feel powerful and makes you feel confident. If you can wear a suit and feel confident in that suit, wear the suit. Same is true for like if you're going to wear a dress, whatever the clothes is, if the clothes are going to make you uncomfortable where you're like picking at yourself and itching and all this stuff, it doesn't matter how professional it makes you look, you're going to look freaking weird, right? So dress what makes you most comfortable and confident. For most people, that's, tucking in a shirt, trying to look as appropriate as they can. But if that's not you, or that's not the nature of the role, then you have to ultimately do what's right for you. Even if you dress up for your interview, that doesn't mean that you have to dress up every day. Okay, just to be clear, you're not setting the expectation for the rest of your life that this is what you need to look at. Secondly, is that even a word? All right, iron your clothes, press your clothes, tailor your clothes, get your clothes fitted. I once got hired for a teaching job, and they're like, oh yeah, you were the guy with the wrinkled shirt. Cool in that case because I got the job, but generally not the way that you want to be like noticed, right? Because it's your attention to detail. It's your ability to like, oh, I went to JCPenney, I got a suit, and I put it on. Never wear a suit off the rack, right? Spend the $50 or $100, I know it seems crazy, to get the suit that actually, get it tailored so it fits. And then when you're in the interview, be very clear and loud so everyone can hear you. You don't want anyone to lean in. Watch them. If they're leaning in, it means they can't hear you. Ask them, get them talking, and get them comfortable. Socially engineer them. Right? They are as nervous to interact with you as you are to interact with them. That is something you need to realize. The nerves don't go away no matter what side of the desk you are sitting at. So they are going to ask you questions to get you comfortable. Hey, how was your drive in? Did you get a tour of the building yet? Etc. Those are all meant to disarm you and to get you to relax a little bit. You need to do the same thing to them. If you did your research ahead of time and you know who the hiring manager is, you're going to have some cool things to bring up that's going to totally get them sideways. Right? It's going to switch them off of, because if they start right into questions, then they're just trying to check boxes and move on. Right? You want to create a relationship. The dating thing actually is very applicable. You need to get them to like you in 30 minutes, which is freaking hard, or it's hard for me. If it's a natural skill that you have, it'll be great. For me, it's something I have to practice. It's something I have to research, and it's, bullet points I'll keep in my back pocket. Hey, make sure to bring up skiing. I don't ski, but I knew the person was into skiing, and I'd gone cross-country skiing once, so I made sure I had a little line to drop in, right? If you're not good at that, cheat by doing your homework. All right, next question. Yes, in the back.
You had kind of said about bullet points, but how can you show on a resume your soft skills?
Communicating to stakeholders, mentions of deadlines, overcoming barriers or blockers. Blocker is a big word in business right now. Everything's a freaking blocker. So how you overcome that are all ways to hint at it. Yes, were you going to add? Darn it. This is why I didn't get to go to RIT. I clearly failed that in the entrance exam. Do you want to ask the question one more time so I rephrase it right?
What is the best way for you to show your soft skills on a resume?
Best way to show soft skills on your resume. I think it's your ability to communicate. I had to work with different groups of people. I had to work with diverse groups of people on challenging tasks to overcome blockers. I turned around a project, something about communicating goals, communicating changes, change orders, those types of things that show that you don't just sit by yourself and do work, but that you bring in others and you know how to communicate to others, especially against a deadline. That's not just cybersecurity. That is any role that you're ever going for, is to try to put that in there. But still have your data, have your cybersecurity stuff in there. It's just how you frame it, especially if you're applying for a job where you have to present complicated, hard things to people. All right, next question. Yes.
For your first job or co-op, do you think that going for a bigger company where you could be, like, where it's a very long hiring process, lots of multiple interviews, do you think that would be the way to go, or would it be more advantageous to try and go for a smaller company?
Interesting. The question was, should you go for large companies or small companies as you're looking at co-ops? Both offer different things. You should probably try to do both, because I think there's a lot that you get from working in a very large organization as far as support, but your ability to actually do anything might be minimized, because there is so much bureaucracy and decision-making inside of large organizations that you are really going to get the large organization experience. Smaller organizations is where you'll actually be able to do the work and get hands-on keyboard doing real things. So for instance, the Microsoft internship program, those interns are very much separated out from the regular Microsoft employees. They have special courses that they go through, and their projects are very much like hackathon type projects that are aligned to the group that they're assigned to, but it's not as if you are an actual employee doing the day-to-day work. You're still an employee, you're still doing work, and it's still important to the organization, but you are an intern versus a fellow team member. But I think there's benefits to both. And I'm not 100% sure on how the co-op process works here. I've been working with some other colleges, and it seems like you might want to, have to go after many co-ops, especially seeing your seniority and stuff like that, as far as like second year, third year, etc. Next question, because I did really good on restating the question, so I think I get one more at least. Yes.
You talked a bit about, getting in the door and feeling unprepared and things like that. So what do you think is the best way to avoid having to live up to your interview and feel like that you just told this person how many skills you have, and having to just immediately apply all of them in a way that you don't have to ask for help? Like, what's the thing that's going to stop that from happening?
So that was a long question. How do you live up to your interview? If you go in and you give a stellar interview, it's like, shoot, I'm the best thing ever, and you should just probably fire your whole security team because I am the one. And I think people are onto that now in the interview process, that they're looking for that bullshitter, who is blowing smoke versus can actually do it. And I think that's something to be very careful of. The other one is to talk during your interview about what the onboarding looks like. What is my onboarding plan? How do you do onboarding here? How does that look like? What is ramp? What's my ramp time to get to role? Right? Those are things that make you feel like you're weak, like, oh, I'm telling them I'm not good enough. But what they hear is, all right, this person is planning. They're a planner, and they're trying to figure out what their 30, 60, and 90-day plan is. In your interviews, say 30, 60, 90-day plans, and people will think that's amazing, okay? Because that's business type stuff, and you're here looking at cybersecurity roles. Throw that in. That means what are you going to do in the first 30 days, the first 2 months, and 3 months in. Hopefully by that 3-month period, you are fully skilled up and have all the knowledge you need. And I didn't respawn the question, did I? Restate the question, did I?
You did.
Okay. Kip, Will, how are we doing on time? Is there more questions or we're good? We're good?
Yep, we're good.
All right. Thank you all so much. Appreciated sitting alongside you guys and being on your campus. Thank you.
Thank you.